Welcome on into another edition of the TitleTown Rundown here on YouTube. He is Kyler Quelch. I am Joey Matroni. We're delighted to be back to bring you yet another episode of all things in the world of Boston sports. As we've done in a lot of these episodes so far, we'll continue to open it up with Red Sox talk. They are currently getting set to finish out a 3-game series against the Atlanta Braves coming up, where they will have an opportunity to win a series, looking to bounce back after their disappointing sweep against the Minnesota Twins. They had a rough game in Game 1 where they held the lead twice, but unfortunately the bullpen gave it up in that one, and then they bounced back in a big way with one of their more complete wins in recent memory. Especially this season, winning 8-0 yesterday and doing well against a pitcher in Bryce Elder, who we talked about leading into the series could be a tough matchup, but that led to Elder's worst start of the season, where his ERA ballooned from 1.97 to over 2.6 in just that one start.
Yeah, kind of my reaction to this series is the bullpen has had too much work. Again, I feel like a broken record. We've had this for like a couple of years where, we have a good bullpen. Oh, look, we used our bullpen too much. They're struggling. Oh, I wonder why. Because you can't get enough offense or you can't get the starting pitching to do it. Suarez was horrible in Game 1. And Connelly Early in Game 2 was phenomenal. And I think we kind of predicted at the end of last year he was going to be a really good pitcher. And he's lived up to that hype. I'll be positive on that and say that he's phenomenal. But to say, and everybody has bad starts. Even Bryce Elder, who's been phenomenal for the Braves, had a bad start. Everybody has those. But right now, it seems like things are kind of happening in a bad time where, like, okay, the bullpen's not working, or okay, starting pitcher has a bad game. And the offense is starting to pick up. And I'll be interested to see how that progresses throughout now through July. But I'm very disappointed in kind of how that's worked. And I think that if they had 10 of these games where they were more complete, like more of a complete team, and we're like 8-2, 9-1, 10-0, I'd feel more comfortable. Like say, oh, they're gonna get right back into it. But you see a different level of play every day. So I'm not sure about this team right now, Joey.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what you were just getting at there. I think what we're noticing over not just this year, but the past couple of years where they also hovered around the 500 mark, there's a lack of consistency. You mentioned the bullpen had been fantastic for the early part of the season, and they've struggled recently. So that's led to some losses, and sort of that execution has been down a little bit bullpen wise, but also some of the decision making from Chad Tracy might not be exactly what we thought it was going to be. And then it's a matter of what are you going to get every day. You have a game like Game 2 against Atlanta in this series where you put up 8 runs, and then Connelly Early shoves in that game, 7 shutout innings, 7 strikeouts, only 4 hits given up. So that's the perfect formula for a win. But then again, you might have another game where your pitcher throws 7 or 8 innings and you don't have enough offense to um, pick up a win. So it really does come down to looking at a 10-15 game stretch. Can the Red Sox put it all together and end with an above 500 record in that stretch and kind of build back from some of these losses? Because after the Game 1 loss against Atlanta, obviously they won yesterday, like we said, but they were 9 games below 500 after losing in Game 1 for the first time since 2022. So things have been so up and down that they really haven't been able to dig themselves out of the hole that they've started the season in.
Yeah, and like you said, it's been a repeated problem. And that's why I kind of get on them for needing to spend a little bit more. And not just spending a little bit more on like the mediocre players or whatever. Some people would argue they're going in the B range. I don't think they're really going in the B range. I think they're going more in the C range, right? Where it's kind of really mediocre. And there's a way to be competitive and not go completely all in. But I don't even think this is competitive. I don't think this is complete. I don't think this is consistent. How many times do I have to say the word consistent until I'm blue in the face? It's ridiculous. I feel like we talk about the same thing from a media standpoint in the Boston area. When are the Red Sox going to get consistent? Well, you had that in Schwarber. You had that in Bregman. Chris Sale, sure, his last couple of years were a little, he needed to change the scenery, but he became that ace again. And what'd you get? Grisham's in, he's gone. So, like, what'd you get out of that trade? Mookie Betts trade, Connor Wong, the only one left on the team who can't even run bases. It will cost you a game because he can't even run the base pads. Like, come on. This is getting ridiculous. And when is ownership going to wake up and say, oh, that was 10 years ago, almost 8 years ago, where we won 4 championships and our fans should be happy and we're going to be buying you drinks. Yeah, maybe 6 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago. But now we've been playing Oakland A baseball in a big market. Like, Boston isn't Vegas or Sacramento or Oakland or whatever they're called nowadays. Like, seriously, like like this is Boston. We expect championships and results. This is, and I think this is a normal reaction to have because we have the same conversation over and over again, Joey.
Yeah, and I think that there are positive things to take out of the series. Jarren Duran's heated up for sure. Definitely a little bit. He had 4 hits last night, one of which was a home run. And then you're finally getting some production out of Isiah Kiner-Falefa, which is a huge thing. He has 6 RBIs in his last 4 games, and he's playing serviceable defense as well. And he's giving you more at the plate than a guy like Caleb Durbin has been. But looking at today's lineup specifically, you have 3 of those guys who were brought in the infield in the lineup today, except Andrew Monasterio's the DH with Durbin in third base and kind of Falefa at shortstop.
That's
So
not a playoff baseball lineup.
I know it doesn't look great on paper, but at least you do have kind of in a better spot offensively than he has been really all season. But I think a lot
Okay,
of
but what's he going to do in October? What's he going to do in October? He had a bad base running mistake that cost the Blue Jays in the World Series.
we got
I don't want to talk about this guy if he's not going to get us a championship. Like, it's
they have to
great.
get.
It's great. He can do it in May. Like, we'll give him a participation trophy for that. But is he going to win us a title? No.
Well, we have to get to October first before we can talk about what he's going to do in October. But I guess what I'm getting at there is you were mentioning like the type of players that they've been going after aren't really the top name guys because they haven't been willing to dish out that kind of money. And I think a lot of the reason why they're going after the players that they go after are because they try their best to, meaning ownership and the front office and all the higher ups, do their best to project what we think that these players might do, how much they might impact each game, and how much they might impact the team over 162. game stretch, but you don't really know how that's going to work out up until you get on the field and actually are playing in the games, and you don't have the consistent impact that you would have hoped for.
I'll show you the movie Moneyball. It'll explain the whole thing to you. It's simple. They're looking at the analytical part of the game, and John Henry was somebody who really wanted Billy Bean, but I think Billy Bean would have done it with a little bit of baseball knowledge as well because he played baseball. So I think, but here's the thing: like you have Craig Breslow, who was a baseball pitcher, not even one of the guys who was brought in like a Chaim Bloom, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He played
Yeah.
baseball. He knows what it takes to win games. And yet he thinks and talks like a robot. Like, do you not remember how to play the game of baseball? Like, it's kind of hilarious when you think about it because he's what, like, you still need some fundamentals of baseball. Yes, getting on base is important. Yes, home runs are important. In fact, we actually could use guys that hit home runs, Joey. I'll
Mm-hmm.
ask the guy out the
Yeah.
street if he doesn't mind launching them. But it's like it's kind of like they kind of forget that like base running, defense, like all these things have to work together, and they look at them kind of individually. And I'm wondering if they need to look at it more holistically, so to speak.
Yeah. Um, I think that what this does have is a good young core of players. We've talked about Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, Peyton Tolley, Connelly Early, um,
William Abreu even
Willie
was a good one.
Abreu. He is
Rafaela.
Rafaela Duran if he stays around. Abreu is another guy that's been talked about whether or not he moves if they do decide to go in a rebuild sort of direction. But I think they have enough young.
No, we're not doing another one of these rebuilds.
I don't want to do another rebuild because I think that when they are winning games, you know how they can win games. They win it with strong pitching and getting enough offense to get you across the finish line. So I think that
They need veteran bats.
a majority of the young core is good. You need the veteran bat, and Contreras, as we've talked about extensively, has kind of been that guy, but he can't do it all by himself. So it's nice to see a guy like Jarren Duran getting going. You mentioned earlier Connelly Early, Peyton Tolley also is kind of forming into his own role now. He had a scoreless first inning just now. So the Sox will be coming up against their former friend in Chris Sale very shortly. So this whole pitching matchup should be very interesting. It was nice to see them actually on. There was a clip of them from last night's broadcast before the game meeting each other for the first time, and the very next day they go out and compete against each other on the mound. So I think that there are enough pieces around for the Red Sox to be better than they are. It really hasn't come together. But Chad Tracy said after they lost game one, after they were up twice in the game, like I said, they went down 7-4 in the ninth inning and then went and scored 2 runs but came up just short. So they lost the game 7-6. And really, I think Chad Tracy hit the nail on the head. They've been um, pitching well at times, and the offense has done great at times as well. But they really haven't been able to put it together as much as they would like.
Yeah, that's why I'm talking about more of a holistic game. Like you need to put the puzzle pieces together, if you will. And I think that starts kind of in roster building as well, where they look at those things very individually. But I would argue that you need fielding, right? You need pitching, you need base running, you need some singles, you need some home runs, you need some doubles. You need it all in a game. And I'd argue that at times they just haven't been able to put that together. I did actually really like the build of this team, maybe with the addition of one more batter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And especially with how Caleb Durbin has played offensively, if they had Bregman on this team, Bregman and Contreras would be ripping the cover off the ball. These guys would be playing even harder, and they would be in playoff position already.
Yeah, and I mean, even Bregman's technically gone through some offensive struggles. He's on a little bit of hit streak right now, but I do agree with you that with um, the lack of offensive production from Durbin is a reason as to why IKF has gotten these chances at third base. And he's finally now trying to make the most of his opportunities, which might prompt the Red Sox to maybe even think about sending Caleb Durbin down to AAA for a spell and see if he can find anything down there. So long as IKF can kind of give you something in this next week or two stretch with the bat. Um, and I think that they, uh, they being the Red Sox, we've talked about leadership as well throughout the portion of these episodes so far, and the loss of Trevor Story from injury and how much he's been struggling. He doesn't really fit into that leadership role right now as much as you would have liked. And I think Jarren Duran's a great bit of energy and a spark plug for this team, and he can be a motor when he's going, but he can get in his own head when he's struggling. So it's nice to see him
They need him to
get
get
him.
going so they can trade him at top price. That's what they need.
That I mean that would definitely that's definitely an option because then it would it would lessen the outfield logjam, especially when um Anthony comes back. Anthony Abreu and Rafaela could be the outfield, and then you'd have Yoshida at DH or Monasterio. You could rotate DHs if you didn't want to have if you didn't need to have Yoshida play every day. But as well, Tristan Casas is still recovering from injury, and I expect that.
He's never gonna hit his full potential.
And that might be just because of how many injuries he's had to deal with. But he's gonna get his opportunity when he's healthy enough to come back because you don't want to have him rehab take all that time and just sit on the bench. You want to at least see what he can give you, if
So
anything.
what do you do with Contreras?
I mean, yes, I'm saying Contreras stays at first base, but I would say if Costas does get healthy this season, he's a DH option and can give uh, Contreras a day off at first base here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, with him being an older guy, like that can certainly be beneficial. My argument though is Contreras has been your best hitter,
Yeah, I don't
and
want to.
they're gonna try to toy around with it because they toyed around with having Guerrero, I believe, on the major league roster, and they should either have Canely or Kelly up. So, um, do you have a bug or something, Joey?
Oh, that was. I forgot that I was on screen for a second, but I was waiting. I was waiting William to bring you around first base
Oh,
after
there
the
we go.
ball.
He's gonna be our base running coach, folks. Maybe he can teach him how to actually do this thing instead of the double A coach who can't even tell a
After the
guy when
ball,
to stay. It's crazy. Maybe Joey's got it. I don't know, but yeah, I
the
certainly
ball rolled under the glove of Michael Harris, and what would have been just a single turned into a double. So I guess it was just out of muscle memory that I was waving him around. But sorry for the
well,
confusion.
you know what? You might be better than the third base coach at this point. I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
Chad Epperson, the third base coach you're talking about, has done a really interesting series himself. He's had three people um, thrown out at home plate in the last stretch of games dating back to the Minnesota series. Twice in the Minnesota series, and then once yesterday as well. Luckily enough, that didn't turn out to come back to haunt the Red Sox with the 8-0 win. But yeah, that kind of leads to a whole separate discussion, which we'll I'm sure talk about more extensively later on in the season. But all of these coaches um, are in much larger roles than they ever have been. Obviously, going from double A manager to the third base coach for the major league team.
I don't know who
My
was drunk when they made that decision. That was crazy.
That might sound like a weird downgrade, but also just moving up 2 levels to the major league level is a whole different ball game, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean that's 2 levels of baseball, like automatically.
Yeah.
Like, 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 do you guys really genuinely need help? Like, this is bad. Like, you know what? Like, I keep picking on a lot of these little nitpicky decisions, but I think they're defining of what the team is right now. They don't have an identity
hmm
collectively.
And they feel like they're really close to like breaking through, and self-inflicted wounds
They have the
kind of
talent.
yeah.
If they didn't have the talent, I'd be like, okay, whatever. Talk about next year. Be hopeful. But they have the talent.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to situational stuff, like getting thrown out at the plate, leaving runners on base in scoring position. Like they have the opportunity right now with runners on first and second in the bottom of the first to get on the board early against Chris Sale. So we'll see if they can break through.
Watch Shell strike some guys out. Watch that happen. Guaranteed.
Well, we'll find out. But yeah, I think that in the wins that we've seen, there are so many positive things that it becomes more and more frustrating that the Sox can't seem to get out of their own way at times.
I think what makes it more frustrating is how it's justified within the front office and the ownership and the lack of
Mhm.
accountability and how like different people say different things. You'll talk to Trevor Story. Trevor Story will be like, "I didn't hear that." Then you'll talk to Craig Breslow. Well, we need to just talk about the analytics today. And then you have Sam Kennedy. Everything's wonderful, folks. We're going to the World Series. And,
Yeah,
and I'm like, what are we talking about? We all need to get on the same planet. But I'm starting to laugh because it's just becoming laughable. I mean, you used to be the Boston Red Sox, and there used to be a certain level of integrity there, and
yeah, and
there just doesn't seem to be that right now.
especially on the side of Sam Kennedy, I don't put all the blame on him because he's kind of the
He's
guy
a
that
yes
has
man. He's a yes man.
and he has to be in front of the camera because John Henry just has flat out refused to do media availability for
He's an
however
angry
many
old
years
man
now.
who just wants free drinks from the city of Boston. And hey, I don't blame him, but go to Florida. We don't want to like people are booing him, and I see that, and
hmm
and to that point, like I don't blame the fans for being angry. And honestly, like I've been a diehard Red Sox fan, but when you see years and years of not making the playoffs or making just the wild card, is that really good enough? Like, okay, if you made the divisional round every year, I wouldn't be complaining. Or every other year or whatever. But like you've had so many you've had more first place finishes or last place finishes than you have titles right now. So, are you really proud of those 4 titles when the last 6 years you've been on vacation? Like, what are you doing? Like I get you want your portfolio, you want your money. Red Sox fans will
hmm
give you your money because they're loyal, but at the same time, don't you think you deserve to give them one more title before you completely bow out?
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I really feel like the only way that it would ever be a change business wise for the Red Sox is if something were to trigger where fans would stop going to games because he does. I mean, John Henry and the rest of ownership does still make money because of the allure that Fenway Park is and how many fans we do really have. They're never not gonna get good ticket sales, no matter how expensive they might be. So
See, I don't see it worth it to go to the games or to even like watch them right now because they're doing ridiculous things to the fans. They're just wanting their free money. And that to me is just freeloading off of the poor. And sure, it's capitalism at its best. You know, we could talk about different business practices on a different podcast, but I think that's horrible business. You gotta at least please your consumers a little bit. You gotta at least go out and get that recognizable guy for more than 1 year. You gotta be able to take a couple swings at the trade deadline that aren't Dustin May, who's 0-17 and doesn't know if he's going to pitch again, which he's done well in St. Louis or whatever. Congratulations.
Let's see what he's doing right now, actually.
But, you know,
this season he's 3-6 with a 4.57 ERA, 51 strikeouts, and a 1.3 WHIP.
Yeah, not great. But hey, at the same time, still better than last year with the Red Sox. And I honestly don't think that was a good fit. I would have rather seen a big swing like a Joe Ryan and Jarren Duran. And if you're willing to trade the password, why don't
which
you
they eventually
yeah,
which
so
they
why
eventually did
why
for
don't you trade it?
Samaniego and
So why don't you
Oviedo.
trade him? So why don't you do it then? Like that's what frustrates me is if you're gonna make those moves anyway for lesser returns, why don't you put all those moves together to get the big fish that you need? You know, like sure, you could have fixed that need. You had enough prospects to probably go get a big bat too, or to retain Bregman.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you do that? Like, it wouldn't take much, is what I'm saying, to keep the fans kind of happy. I think that a big notion in all of this is that they keep toying with things too. Like they send guys down who are doing well, and it's like, why don't you keep the things that are working in place and change the things that aren't?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Sorry, I had some audio issues there very briefly, but we figured that out. Yeah, I think that they're gonna keep trying to get by in this sort of small market fashion, but
It's hypocritical. In Boston,
I think that they would have to be significantly worse than the league at the end of the season for like owners for. I mean, maybe we end up being towards the bottom of the league enough this year if things don't get better for Breslow to be gone. But obviously, we've talked about at times that business-wise, things are still going too well for John Henry to look at selling the team, and he has so many other business ventures that it's clear that his focus isn't solely on the Red Sox. But he probably just looks at the bottom line at the end of the day and says we're doing fine, so it doesn't really go that deeply into it.
yeah, and I think that a lot more people are checked out right now. Like I kind of am, because what's the point when you're not going to see anything change? Now, if I saw a big bat come at the deadline and they won 10 games before the deadline, that might intrigue me to watch.
Yeah,
And if they took a big swing, I would be like, oh yeah, why not? Like
I'll be honest. They've had me roped in for years. I'm the type of person that where I am now, I'm never not gonna watch the Red Sox unless something got historically bad.
I mean, I tune into it every once in a while or listen to it on the radio, but
mm-hmm.
But like honestly, right now with where I am in my career, I'm trying to build my career, trying to really work on a lot more things. So the way I look at it, like like I am tuned in still. Like I can't say I'm not. I mean, I am a diehard fan. Always be a Red Sox fan. But I'm upset that they're kind of continuing what used to happen in history. And my fear is that I'm going to be 6 feet um, down in the ground before they win the next one.
Well, let's hope it doesn't get to that point.
Well,
But
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I did avoid saying the word, but I did. But
yeah, no, I know what you mean. But yeah, they're just to roll it back into current day. They are still looking to get the series win against Atlanta. They're nothing after one and a half rather. So two scoreless innings from Peyton Tolley to start this afternoon's game, and then after this series wraps up against the Braves, the Sox will take on the Cleveland Guardians for the first time this year. That series will be 3 games. Tomorrow at 7:10, Saturday at 4:10, and Monday at 1:40.
and they have
Sunday
Messick going for them.
Sunday at 1:40. Before another off day Monday, so we'll be able to lead into a Orioles series from that, and then they face the Yankees once again, looking to obviously
Oh
not get
boy,
cut.
here we go. Here we go. Bellinger. It's
Yeah.
long. It's gone. And you can kiss this season goodbye, John Henry, because Cody Bellinger just hit another home run
Well, hopefully it doesn't get to that
on
point.
another no-name pitcher you guys
But
decided to call up.
if they can figure something out, these wins against the Guardians and then more specifically the Orioles and Yankees will be big in the division, so we'll see if anything changes there. But let's move on now to the NBA. We only have really one active series left to talk about because as we predicted and alluded to on last episode, the Knicks did inevitably sweep the Cavs, and that one wasn't even close towards the end.
Yeah,
And
we were watching the guys on the bench playing for 10 minutes, and I actually watched a little bit of that game, and I was like, oh, I called it. I'm gonna watch some hockey now. Like, it's kind of
well,
one of those things where it's like this
yeah,
just isn't interesting anymore.
the Knicks obviously they're in a good spot. They'll have some time off, but with how I believe that Game One of the NBA Finals will be on June 8th. So that's obviously a decent amount of time, um, and especially the fact that the Thunder and Spurs are still going on. They'll play Game 6 tonight, and the Thunder will have an opportunity to go back to the finals for the second year in a row after they won Game 5 by a final score of 127 to 114. So my question becomes with how well the Knicks played in the series against Cleveland and getting the eventual sweep, it becomes a rest versus rust sort of discussion on how will the Knicks look when the NBA Finals gets underway.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is that the East is what it's proven to be. It isn't as strong as the West, but I do think that um, whoever takes this series that's still going on, whether it's the Thunder, whether it's the Spurs, one of those teams I think will have a good chance to really win the title because they'll have less rest but more momentum going for them. And honestly, like we knew what the Cavs were gonna be. We knew they were gonna come out short. the Knicks were playing like they were on fire, and they,
Hmm.
and I watched it for a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, like time to watch the NHL, like time to move on. Oh, are they done hugging each other yet? Oh no, there's a minute before they do that. Oh no, they're just dribbling the ball. See, here's one thing I don't get about the NBA, that stupid like dribbling the ball out thing. Why don't you just dunk it on them? Like just pour water on it. Like if you're gonna like keep like in hockey, they don't like just puck control. Like they're going till the final whistle. Like that's I get it's a respect thing, whatever, but it's just so soft to me. And like the bench players are playing half the game, and well, not half the game, but pretty much the whole fourth quarter. So it was like it wasn't a close game. It wasn't fun. It's like, is that really a good product for the NBA? In my opinion. It's not. And really, the only series that is getting people's attention is OKC and San Antonio, because those two teams are the future of the NBA. And I've said that time and time again. I think Wemby takes tonight's game because he didn't have a great game in the last game.
Yeah, he's
And
gonna be
he's
looking.
playing at home. He's going to come out ready to go.
He's gonna be looking to bounce back. He did have 20 points, but he shot only 4 of 15.
He'll be better.
So
It's kind of like
so
how SGA got shut down in the game before that.
yeah, and then he comes back and gets 32. But 16 of that 32 actually came from the free throw line, and I think that that concept is, I think, Kyler, one of the things that you don't necessarily love about the NBA, and as much as you talk about,
Oh
especially
my
when we
goodness.
especially when we've talked about the Celtics throughout the year,
Tapped him on the hand. Oh yeah, that's a foul.
both on WMCK, and then we talked about their end of the season here on YouTube. But I think that
Oh, he flopped. It's time to call a foul. Where's Scott
SGA
Brooks at? Is Scott Brooks refereeing this game? Because he's the
Scott
extender. He's got
Scott
parlays
Foster.
to protect. Like, I could go on and on about this.
But yeah, that's where I was going before Kyler. Inevitably went on a rant about the NBA. But I think that SGA has become so synonymous with the whole like culture of foul baiting within the NBA and getting to the hole by or trying to get to the rack, but also looking for a foul on the way there. And he did that. He made 16 out of his 17 free throws, and part of the reason why he is the MVP is the scoring that he was able to provide.
Yeah,
So
but that's like what LeBron does. It's not special. It's literally special treatment and not necessarily ability. When you're getting to the free throw line more than a guy like a Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, like I actually would argue Brown played better this year because he had to carry the weight of the whole team. You know,
well, yeah, I don't think that's wrong to say, but then again, he played. When you say Jaylen Brown played better this year, you mean in comparison to Tatum or comparison to SGA?
to SGA,
Okay,
honestly,
well, that's a
because
little bit that's a
because
different debate, but
because I do think
mhm.
he had to carry the weight of the whole team, and that should be considered most valuable in the league. But instead, it's how many points I score because I get fouled. And it's, like I used to love watching the NBA when I was growing up. But like LeBron did that whole foul look for it thing, and that's why he's still in the league at 40 some odd. And, he's a good player, but he was no Michael Jordan. He wasn't, you know, some of these other guys that have come before him, but we can have that discussion at a later time too. What I love about a guy like a Wembanyama or like a Jaylen Brown is they don't look for those fouls. They play through the game, they play through it. And That's what I love about like a Kobe Bryant, for example, RIP, is guys who just play no matter what because they love playing and they love the competition. They rise up to it. And sure, you can say Gilgeous-Alexander's a good player, but he also got helped by the refs.
Yeah,
And now you're going to probably see Scott Brooks calling fouls on SGA to extend it to Game 7 to protect his parlays. But
let's see if Scott Foster is refereeing
Scott
tonight.
Foster, the extender. He's very well known for being the extender.
Let me see. Do we have anything from the NBA officials page? Yet
Hey, I mean,
today.
it is interesting though, isn't it? It is interesting. Like, I actually do think this series is a lot more fun, even though I do make fun of the NBA. I am sorry, I do make fun of the NBA, but it is starting to become a little bit ridiculous.
No Scott Foster tonight for Game 6. We get Zach Zarba as the crew chief for that one.
Yeah, I
With
know
James
why,
Williams,
because
the
everybody would
referee.
say that this is a scripted series. Like, if that was to happen. Surprising. Like, no, I mean, like, that's literally what would happen. Like, I was watching the Knicks game. That's a foul. Did he touch him with his fingertip? What? Like, is that really a foul? Like, okay, sure, if there's heavy contact, sure, there should be a foul or whatever, but come on. If you're both going for the ball and your fingertips touch, that shouldn't be a foul. Like I think over the years it's gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I just miss like the Paul Pierce thing,
We'll see what happens tonight, and then as the
what's your prediction, Joey, for tonight's game?
I agree with you in the sense that I think Wembanyama is gonna take it to another level. He did that in Game 4 to get it tied up at 2. In their last game in San Antonio, he had, I think, 16 or 17 points by the end of the first quarter, and he was not afraid to shoot the ball. So I think he's going to be looking to bounce back and lead the way. Julian Champagnie for the Spurs had over 20 points despite the loss in Game 5. So it is another thing to look at is who's going to be the auxiliary guy outside of Wembanyama. Obviously, Stephon Castle has been good as well throughout the series.
Great
So
draft pick, by the way. That was a great draft pick.
that it was. We'll be sure to keep an eye on that series, and then depending on the outcome, maybe we'll be previewing the NBA Finals next week, or we'll have.
My take on it is whoever wins that series is going to the finals.
But they are going to the finals, but it's a matter of.
Or I mean, winning it. I mean, I think whoever gets this series wins it.
No, that's a discussion we'll have leading up to, more so leading up to the start of the series. But I still give the Knicks a chance, despite agreeing with you that the Thunder or Spurs will have more momentum going in. But I think it'll be a competitive series either way.
I think like it's going to be two teams that are very hot and very, and deep. Like we talked about the Knicks' depth. To be fair, we talked about the Knicks' depth and how deep they are with their starting five, and even a couple guys off the bench too. So we talked about that, and then both the Spurs and the Thunder are very deep teams. So we'll definitely have that preview for you. Did you want to go over a little?
Yeah, well, let's move on to the NHL to finish it out, and then I will talk a little bit about what we hope to do next week as well.
Awesome. So you want to talk about the East or the West first, Joey?
I get some notes about the East, so let's go to the East first because that is the still active series, because we've got another sweep on the other side of the bracket in the NHL as well. But Carolina now up 3-1 in the series after they picked up a 4-0 win yesterday against Montreal, and they took it over in the first period, scoring 3 goals late in the first period, leading to their eventual win. They dominated offensively, outshooting the Canadians 44-18, and I mentioned those 3 goals in the first period coming from Logan Stankoven, Jordan Stahl, and Sebastian Aho had the first one as well. And Kyler, you mentioned it last week, how good Frederick Anderson's been, but he was great again.
Oh, Freddie was on fire. And at the end of that second period, too, I know that he was kind of, you could have put him out there in no pads and he wouldn't have been harmed for majority of that period. But at the end of that period, Montreal kind of found that momentum and they kind of felt like they had to try to do something because they were fighting for their livelihood a little bit. And Freddie Anderson just made a couple of great saves at the end of that period to keep his team shutting out the Canadians. And that's what it comes down to in the playoffs. Hot goaltender, hot team. Like, that's what it really does come down to. And so, like, I don't know. I just really like what Carolina's doing, and I think they're out shooting for the most part in almost every one of these games. They've outshot the Canadians by double.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even have to look at the stats. Like, I've seen the, I was watching the shots on goal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like it's like 30-15 or 33
Yeah.
to 17 or it's just lopsided. And what Montreal has done a good job of is blocking those shots at times. But you saw in that first period how they kind of had some lapses, and I think that a big part of that is just because they are tired. They played 2 overtime games in a row. They've played 18 games to Carolina's 12 in the
Yeah.
playoffs. They're exhausted, and you're starting to see that. So I think Carolina is going to move on after they win again tomorrow or whatever. But yeah, I think that I do really applaud this young Canadians team with a few veterans for the season that they've put up. Another thing that really killed them too, or shouldn't say killed them, but really didn't do well for them. They on the penalty kill they did great, but they struggled with how um they kind of struggled with getting those unnecessary penalties
Mm-hmm.
in the game, and that kind of they took themselves out of the game a little bit. They got frustrated and they took that frustration out on the other team, and I'm not sure that was the right way to do it, because they ended up being on the being on the PK and tiring themselves out.
Yeah. Just to give some more numbers on that, that was Anderson's third shutout of the playoffs, and he set a franchise postseason record with 5 career shutouts as a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. So Carolina has to feel confident with him between the pipes heading into Game 5, and also if they can get to the Cup final, as you were saying. They've also now won 6 straight road playoff games, which is a big reason as to why they've been in such control. But that control started with winning the first 8 games. No matter what, they swept the first 2 series. A little bit different, seeing some adversity for the first time. Uh, Losing the opener to Montreal, but they've bounced back in a big way since then.
Yeah, you know why I think Montreal won that game is because they had more momentum because they played a game 7. Carolina was finding their skates again. And and Freddie Anderson wasn't sharp either in that game. And but they even talked about it on the broadcast. How basically since that game, Frederick Anderson has stepped up huge, and Brendan Moore really has trusted him, even when he did struggle in that one game. And I'm actually very happy for Anderson because for a long time the Bruins had his number in the playoffs. So it's great to see him get out of the Leafs organization and have some success in the playoffs, similar to Marner, where it's like, I remember when the Bruins had their number for 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yep. All right, let's quickly
Yeah.
move on to the other side. The Vegas Golden Knights get their sweep as well. We talked about how much momentum coming back from down 3 to win the game before the sweep 5-3, game 3. And they were able to use that and propel themselves to a win. In game 4, they pick up the sweep, and they'll get a break similar to it won't be as long as the New York Knicks, I don't believe, on the NBA side, but they get some rest. But Carolina might have some momentum going in if
Yeah,
they
I
are
could
able
I
to
could see Carolina
finish off
winning the first game.
Montreal.
I could definitely see Carolina winning that first game, but I honestly think Tortorella will have them prepared.
Yeah, and there's also obviously the chance that Montreal wins a game or two, keeps that series going, and then it makes the break even longer for Vegas. So that'll be interesting to um see how that plays out.
Yeah, well, kind of
But
like
they've
what I noticed in Game 4
mhm.
was that Mark Stone got another game-winning goal. Got another goal. Sorry, this time he had the game-winning goal. In the first game, he came back. He had the first goal that fueled the comeback from 3-0 in the first period. Since he's come back, he's kind of been the leader of the crew, if you will.
Mhm.
He's won a cup with them before. He's kind of a veteran guy at this point, but he's still playing at an incredible level. Obviously the guys trust him. The guys trust Torts as a coach who's been there before. But and the amount of times that Torts has been in the playoffs, he's had some success over the years. He's also had some not so good times as well. But I think that really, with how good this team has been playing, they had the lowest wins since 2002. I believe, for making the Western Conference Finals and going on a cup run, and we knew what they could become with how their roster was built, but I think that they needed a different voice, like we've mentioned, and they just seem ready. They feel like the type of team that is going to go after that cup, that is going to be physical, that isn't going to let you get away with winning 3 in a row, or even 2 in a
Yeah,
row. They're gonna
and
fight.
on the Colorado side, just very briefly, they came in as the favorites to win because they had one of if not the best offenses in the NHL. But they weren't fully healthy throughout the series as well. They were without uh, Nathan McKinnon was playing through an injury. Same
Kel
thing with
McCarr was out.
Same thing. Kale McCarr came back while he was still injured, but was also out at times as well. And then they also didn't have Valerie Nichushkin for a time as well. But I think that this is more about how well Vegas played more than it is
Yeah, Colorado in that
the
first
downfall of
period.
Colorado.
That first period. Let's just talk about. I think the momentum switcher was really Game 3. in Vegas when Vegas was down 3-0 after one period. And the
Mm-hmm.
next period, they come out and they're just and they chip away at it. They make it 3-3 going into the third period, and Hurdle of all people, who I have always said the Bruins should go out and get, scores
Yeah.
the game winner, and off of a Mark Stone assist. And I think in the 2 games that he came back, how many monumental plays did he have? He had 3 huge ones. So it's huge, but I do think that it shows the adversity. It shows how the series was going to go, because when they came back from 3-0, I said, okay, Vegas is going to be tough to beat, even for a good Carolina team. This is going to be really
Mm-hmm.
difficult. But I think that series could go a while. It's not going to be a sweep.
Oop,
I'm actually more
there
entertained.
you are.
So sorry. Um, as I
You were
was,
saying that series could be red and then continue from there.
it's going to be a more complete series.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'd rather watch
We get,
that than the NBA Finals any day of the week.
but either way, we're gonna have some good series to talk about, and then to finish it out. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update to what the next week of episodes could look like. Um, we're going to do one traditional episode next week, so everything like we've been doing in Boston sports, so Red Sox, and then any news coming up about either the Patriots, Celtics, or Bruins, and then we'll talk also about the NHL and NBA, Stanley Cup Final for the NHL and NBA Finals for the NBA, and then our second episode of the week is currently planned as almost an athletic year in review from Merrimack Athletics, and we're planning to have a friend of ours, Jack Lawhorn from the Jacked Up podcast, come on and give his thoughts on that as well. So be on the lookout for that next week. That's going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Titletown Rundown podcast here on YouTube. Once again, he is Kyler Quelch. I am Joey Matroni. Thank you all for watching and have a great rest of your weekend.